Yo, what's up? So in this video, I'm gonna go over all of the balance adjustments, whether it makes the unit good, is it enough of a buff, or is it a nerf, what do I think about it, and if there is any new available strategy, a new meta with the changes that they made. Yeah, it's gonna be a very long video, so I'm gonna have chapters down in the description so you can just skip to whichever unit you want to see. I'm gonna go over the first unit that everyone cares for the most, which is JJ. His change is his multipliers got increased from 120% to 140% for both of his S1 and S3, and he also gains a true damage portion, whereas previously he was gaining a additional damage based on his lost HP, right? Every 2% of lost HP, he gains 1% of damage up to a maximum of 50%. So he was doing about 180% damage on his S1 and S2, but now he's doing true damage. So this true damage is 30% of his max HP. I did a few tests. I don't think it's working as it's working properly. Currently it does a little bit less. It's about like 25 or 26% of its lost HP. This is not like percentage based. It is how much HP that he has lost will be added to your damage. So if you give him like HP, his true damage portion is going to be more damage for you. So moving forward, I think JJ, you might want to build him with crit damage, HP, attack, or crit damage, HP, because the true damage cannot crit, and you might want to just double down and just make him super tanky and do his damage based on the true damage that he does. I also forgot to mention that when he enters the demon mode, you can still proc Ocean Waves, but you cannot proc Avatara, so it might not be a good idea to put Avatara on him. You might just want to go Master Growth so that you gain more HP, so you do more damage on his true damage portion. And also with the change on the ability, his passive not being affected by any abilities, this is, like I said, a two-edged sword. You can no longer be counted by Nusi and stuff, but when you run him with Ahmed, he will not be cooldown reduced by your Ahmed, so he will have a 2-turn downtime that he is not in demon mode, and that might be a problem for you. And that's why you want to probably build him with like a more tanky stats than what you are currently running, which is probably like crit damage, attack, or crit damage, attack, and speed. And one more of the change that is insanely massive for him is that whenever he gets attacked in the demon form, he gains a shield for 1 turn before taking ability damage, and the shield strength is 30% of his max HP, which once again solidifies that you kind of want to build him with HP stats more so than attack stats at this point. And it might even be better to run him with attack, HP, speed, something like that, or attack, HP, just so that he can get this shield. Because when he enters the demon mode, he cannot be debuffed, which means you cannot apply buff block on him, so his shield will automatically reapply whenever you attack him. So the only way to kill him is you do a nuke on him. Yeah, you just do a nuke on him. You cannot really buff block him. The standoff on the first turn of demon mode helps him to survive, but then after that, the shield will then help him to survive any chip damage that is coming towards him. Because in PvP currently, when the healing receive gets lowered, he kind of just dies out, because when he enters demon mode, he does the damage, but he can't really heal up because the healing is now at 0, right? But with the max HP shield that he gains right now, this is going to help him survive dramatically. But like I said, he has a 2-turn downtime on his demon mode, and the only way that you can reduce it is by running Ocean Set on him. So this change is very good in my opinion, but currently we have like Ana, which is like leagues above Jiang Jiuli. I think this is not gonna make him broken. I think he's gonna be very good in PvP, but he's not gonna be to the point of like Ana level, or maybe, yeah, I don't know if he's going to be at Nusi level. I think he should be around Nusi level, because right now a lot of units are not affected by Nusi anymore, because like right now Jiang Jiuli cannot be affected by cooldown ability, Tever cannot be affected by cooldown ability, Liam doesn't care, Hyde doesn't care. A lot of Espers doesn't really care about cooldown up anymore. So Jiang Jiuli might be on the same level as Nusi after this buff, but it's not gonna put him at the level of Ana. I think Ana is still like leagues above anything else. Yeah, his best set I think currently is going to be Ocean Set and Master Growth, and the main stat is going to either be crit damage, attack HP, or attack HP, or attack HP, or crit damage HP. There's a lot of stats that you can go with him, but mostly you want to be focusing on his HP more so now than before. Also, in Infinity Tower he's gonna be very annoying, because now you cannot increase his cooldown, so the only way that you can really counter him is by nuking him when he enters the demon mode. You cannot debuff him, you cannot strip him, and again, it's gonna be very difficult in Infinity Tower. I hope they don't put him as the boss in Infinity Tower, because this shield strength is insanely high. You just don't know it yet. This insane shield strength, 30% of his max HP. Infinity Tower has damn near 200,000 HP. This shield strength is going to be 60,000, and you cannot debuff him, which means you cannot defense break him, and yeah, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, that's it for JJ. Now let's go over Donar. His change is that his ability 2 is now on a 2-turn cooldown, but he no longer reduce it when you crit. He absorbs the teammate's defense, 15% of all of your teammates' defense, and then he does the damage, and the damage is unchanged. It is 110% of his defense. His R6 now instantly applies Thundercrack passive, and then he gains 2 Thunder's blessings whenever he casts his S3. So that's the only change. Do I think this is enough for him? I don't think so. He's going to be doing a lot of damage on his Thundercrack passive, but he's not really a bruiser, because for you to be a reliable bruiser, you need to be either immune to debuffs, you know, like stuns and everything, because if you're stunned, then you cannot do anything. You cannot do damage, you cannot counter attack, you're basically like a sitting duck doing nothing and just tanking damage, which is not good. Or you have a self-sustain that can also do some retaliation. Just reviving is not enough, second life is not enough. If Hyde only has his second life and he doesn't have that debuff immunity, Hyde would be completely garbage. But because he has that debuff immunity, Hyde is one of the best bruiser that you can get, right? Ana is currently the best bruiser that you can get, because she not only has a revive, she has a cleanse, and she has a self-sustain with her S1. Genie is also a bruiser because she has a self-sustain, a reliable self-sustain that whenever you hit her, she heals for 60% of her remaining HP or something like that, right? Whereas Donar, he doesn't really have anything. He doesn't have debuff immunity. This immunity is not really a debuff immunity, because he needs to take his turn, and then it could also be removed. And then his sustain is that he just has a lot of defense from his Thunder Blessing stacks, which is not enough, because we have units that can ignore defense entirely, so they just one-shot Donar, or they can just straight up nuke Donar, and Donar can't really do anything, because defense up to a certain point doesn't really provide much for you. it doesn't really provide much damage mitigation. You want to have a balance of HP and defense for you to tank damage, and not just put everything onto defense and then hope that you can survive everything, right? That's not how defense work. It has diminishing returns, so if you stack a lot of defense, you're still not going to get like an insane damage mitigation. So that's why he's not really a bruiser in a sense, and he has a very awkward downtime with his playstyle, because at the start of turn, if you have him at R2, he gains this Thundercrack passive, and then when you get to 5 stacks, he instantly gets his turn, he does his nuke, and then he does his S3, applies another Thundercrack, and then whenever you get 5 stacks, he does a nuke again, gets another turn. Now he has nothing. You have to wait one whole turn. He probably will use his S1 and then not proc the passive because it's now on a 2-turn cooldown. You cannot reduce it further by critting, so you cannot apply Avatara set on him to reduce it, to get it every turn now. So you have a downtime whenever he uses his S1. It's not gonna proc this one, and then the next turn that he gets, only then he gets to unlock his Thundercrack passive again. So you probably would want to build your Donar with speed, some speed this time around, instead of running like crit damage defense. You want to run crit damage defense speed if you want to, you know, make him sort of a bruiser. If you run him on crit damage defense, then he has that downtime like I said, and during that downtime he is super slow and he doesn't get that additional turn because he doesn't have this conductor buff. For him to get this conductor buff, for him to get the additional turn, he needs to get this conductor buff, gains 5 stacks, and then he gets the additional turn. Without this, he cycles very terribly. This buff doesn't really address his main issue, which is stuns. If you get stunned, then you get your conductor buff gets removed, you don't get your additional turns, you don't do your damage, you don't do anything with him. He's not countered by Nusi and those sorts of units, but he's still countered by his main counter, which is stuns. So yeah, my conclusion with Donar is that I don't think this buff is enough for him. It might be he's slightly better, obviously, but is it going to make him like meta in PvP? Probably not. I don't think he's going to be usable if you have decent units in your roster. I think it's still going to be low tier, even though this nuke is quite decent. It's not really anything crazy because if you don't have defense break on the enemies, you're not really going to do much with all the inflated HP. Okay, so next unit is going to be Lewis. Lewis got a huge buff. This is insane. I actually missed it from the patch notes, but his S3 now minus 2 turns of cooldown instead of just 1. This is going to be huge for his cycling. I will show you in a bit, but his damage or the attack multiplier got reduced significantly, but it's not that big of a deal because if you just have a slightly higher speed, you should have about the same damage output as you once had before. So his S2, the damage went from 180% to 95%, but he also gets a 0.45% of attack for every speed that you have. So to make up for the damage loss, you need a total of, let me calculate it real quick. To make up for the damage loss on his S2, you need a total of 222 speed, which is not a lot. He already starts off with let's see here, 100 base speed, so you only need about 120 speed on him to make up for the damage loss. And his S3 is now 140% of attack, whereas previously it is 260. So to make up for that damage loss, you only need, let's see here, you only need 181 speed, so you only need plus 81 speed on him to make up for the damage loss. This is 3 hits, so instead of 0.22% scaling, it is actually 0.66 total scaling. This change is massive for him because now you can run him on Windwalker with like 300 speed and not only do insane amounts of damage, but take a look at his cycling, right? In PvP, the old version is garbage. Let me just straight up tell you right now. He is fun, but he is completely like not usable in PvP unless you run like a Xuan Pin so that you can one-shot the entire team. But with the current buff, okay, I just used my S2, boom, I killed him, this guy, right? I minus my cooldown by 2. When I get my turn, I have the S2 up again. I do my nuke again. Look at this. This is crazy. I kill him, I reduce my cooldown, and I get my nuke again. This is crazy, man. Yeah, I think he's gonna be more valuable in PvP. I don't know if he's gonna be meta because single target units is still going to be iffy. But with this buff, he has a perpetual invincibility buff as long as you can kill at least one of the enemy with his S3. You build him with Windwalker 300 speed. He goes into his S2, S3, kills someone, gains invincibility. He gets his turn super quick because now you have him with 300 speed, right? He gets his turn, does the S2 again, S3, kills someone again, S2, S3, S2, S3, all the while gaining invincibility at all times. So yeah, he's gonna be very good in like I think as a sole DPS tank team, but you really need to protect him. You need cleanses, you need damage reduction so that you don't get one shot from the enemy cleave team or something like that. You need revivers, so you can revive him and stuff like that. Again, you really need to babysit him. You need immunity set for him to work, and his biggest opponent is going to be Mavis, and Mavis is everywhere in PvP. Everyone runs Mavis in PvP because if you don't kill with your S3, you don't reduce your cooldown, you don't cycle like I just showed you just now. If he doesn't reduce his cooldown, he still gains the invisibility, but it's only for one turn. But his cycle is going to be a lot worse. So he's going to go S2, S3, S1, and then S1 again. But it's not too bad because he gains AP, right? So yeah, Lewis changes makes him very strong, way better than he once was. The damage fall off is not that much. You can make up the damage fall off by just giving like at least 80 speed on him. So yeah, it's not that big of a deal, the damage fall off. I think he's going to be more viable in PvP. The best set for him, I think, is going to be Windwalker, not Ocean Waves. Ocean Waves doesn't really provide him much because you are already cycling S2, S3 every single time, right? If you can kill the enemy. So I think the best one is Windwalker Avatara or Windwalker immunity set, so he doesn't get stuns and stuff like that. You can also go with like immunity Windwalker Growth to make him tankier or something like that. A lot of this 2-piece set is flexible, but I think the main set is going to be the Windwalker set. That's it for Lewis. I think he's good now. Maybe not meta in PvP, but way better than he once was. Okay, Narmer. Narmer is an easy one. His only change is that his passive now grants him 2 burning stacks instead of 1 for each debuff, for each buff that he gets. I think this is... It makes him easier to set up because right now you only need Narmer, and then if you have Xuan Pin, you can run Xuan Pin. Where is she? Xuan Pin, and then Ethan, yeah, R2 Ethan. These 2 spots is flexible. You can run anything because if you have his Divinate, if you guys don't know, his Divinate is at the start of the combat, he has 100% chance to gain attack up. There we go. So with the new passive, when you get this attack up, you gain 2 stacks. And when Xuan Pin does her S3, she gives attack buff to Narmer. That also gives him 2 stacks, so he now has 4 stacks. And then Ethan with his magic tune buff gives him 1 stack, so that's 6 stacks in total. You put him on light set, that gives him 1 more stack, so that's 8 stacks in total. 8 stacks in total. And then you put your Xuan Pin or your Ethan on the shield set, what is it called? The adamantine set. That's another buff on him. So how many buffs is that? Attack buff from the Divinate, attack buff from Xuan Pin, light set on him, adamantine set on Ethan, Ethan's magic tune, 5 so far. When he gets his turn, he gets 2 burning stacks, and now he receives 12 stacks in total to do his nuke. So yeah, you only need this 2 units for him to really set up with this current change. So it's a lot less restrictions to run him. He doesn't require like a full team of supports now. He just needs like a few buffs, and he should work just fine. And another fun team that you can run is, it's not a practical team for like knockout, but it's just a fun team. So this is how the team is going to look like. So how this team works is that, once again, if you have him at Divinate 3, then you start with the attack buff, so that's 1 buff. The immunity set, 1 more buff. Shield set from one of your supports, that's 3 buffs at the start of combat, so now he has 6 stacks already. When Clara gets her turn, she AP pushes and also provides the shield set, shield buff and also immunity, so that's 2 buffs. Now he has 10 stacks already. And when Xuan Pin gets her turn, she uses her S3, gives him attack buff, so now he already has 12 stacks. And when you have Narmer at R6, I also forgot to mention, this is only going to work for R6 Narmer. When you have him at R6, he instantly casts his S3 whenever he gets 12 stacks. So when Xuan Pin does her S3, he already receives 12 stacks. He will then cast his S3 even without getting his turn. So yeah, that's the first nuke from his S3. So when he uses his S3, the passive states that he will also gain 2 burning stacks, so it resets down back to 2 stacks. And then now it's Abigail's turn. Abigail AP pushes him and also gives him attack up and absorb, so that's 2 buffs. Now he has 6 stacks in total of burning stacks. When he gets his turn, he gains 2 stacks, so now he's at 8. And because of Sachiko, one of her resonance gives you crit rate up. Her resonance 2 gives you crit rate up at the start of each teammate's turn for 1 turn. So when he gets his turn, he gets 2 stacks from getting his turn, and he also gets 2 stacks from Sachiko's crit rate buff. So that only lands him at 10 stacks, but it's good enough. He does his nuke at 10 stacks, puts him back to 2 stacks of Burning Sun, and then Sachiko gets her turn. Sachiko will then provide the attack up and also the shield, more buffs to him. And then Abigail gets her turn. She still hasn't used her S2. She uses her S2. That's 2 more buffs on him, so 4 stacks of buffs from Sachiko and Abigail, and which means it puts him at 10 stacks. When he gets his turn again, he will then get 12 stacks and then nuke with the Emblazoned Strike again. So with this team, he is going to be spamming his S3 every single time he gets his turn, because whenever you cast his S3 when you have 8 or more stacks, it will reduce his cooldown by 1 turn. And not only that, it will cast his S3 outside of his turn because of the amount of buffs that this team can provide. You can even remove Xuan Pin to put a unit that can put more buffs to him. But yeah, it's just a meme team. It's not really going to function all that well in PvP or in knockout. You can still use it in like point war because you can pick and choose your opponent, right? But in knockout, this team is very susceptible to like cleave. It doesn't even have speed lead, so you cannot really contest speed. There's a lot of problems with this team, right? But it's just for fun. The other combo that you can do is, this is mostly for like PvE. You can run Liam with Narmer because his S1 does provide him with attack up. So whenever he assists because of Liam, he will then gain attack up and then gain 2 stacks of burning stack and potentially do more nukes with his S3. But the biggest problem with Narmer in PvE is that he doesn't really do that much damage. His main selling point is that he ignores 40% of defense and he does a lot of damage AoE. He doesn't really do that much damage single target. And in PvE, you can reliably defense break. And also, like the Falsetto Fantasy bosses, they don't really have that much defense. So with just defense break, you are already ignoring a huge portion of the damage mitigation. So with Narmer providing the ignoring 40% defense, he's not really gonna do that much damage compared to other units that is attacking on attack break enemies. Is the buff enough? I mean, in PvP, he is just a nuker, and just being a nuker is not really enough at this point, which is why R0 Changji is not good, because he is just a nuker. You kind of need a utility to just being a nuker, because R2 CJ now swaps the AP and also the HP, right? He is a very good nuker with like his damage scaling, but because he is just a nuker, he's just not good enough. And the same thing with Narmer. He is just a nuker, which means he's not good enough in PvP. So yeah, I think nothing has changed in Narmer for Narmer in PvP. Okay, next unit is Liling. His change is that his R2 effect is now on his base kit, and then also his S3 multiplier got increased, or rather the true damage portion. Previously is only up to 50% of his attack. Now it's up to 100% of his attack. And then his new R2 effect is upon a crit, Alta's cooldown will be shortened. With this change, he is going to be a very good AP controlling unit. So this new R2 effect is upon a crit, Alta's cooldown by reduced by 1 turn. With the current buff, he's going to go into his S3, and if you have him at R6, he's going to steal or absorb 30% of AP from all enemies. So it almost guarantees him to get the turn. So it's like an additional turn in a way. So S3, he goes into his S2. His S2 will then give him 50% AP, because if you crit on all 5, then he gets 50% AP, and also reduce this S3 cooldown by 5 turns. So he instantly gets it. So now he's at 50% AP. When he gets his turn again, he's going to use his S3 again, but the problem is his S2 is now on cooldown, so he goes into his S1 instead of his S2. So the fix to him is you want to run him on ocean waves, so he could potentially go into S3, S2, S3, S2, S3, S2, and he could be one of the best units for AP controlling. Because of this, he is going to be an Avatara magnet, because whenever he uses his S3, he will get countered by every single one of the enemy team, and he's just going to get shit on. Yeah, his damage output is still going to be very low. His S2 does like damn near no damage. His S1 is also like no damage. His S3 is slightly higher damage. It's not really anything too crazy. It's just it does slightly higher true damage, but it's still not going to be enough. And in PvP right now, AP controlling is a nightmare for you, and that's why you don't really see units like Sienna being used, because AP controlling is Mavis's best friend. If you are paired up with Mavis, or if you go against a Mavis and you bring a unit like Liling to AP control the enemy team, you are asking for trouble. The Emma is going to permanently be at 0 AP, and you will permanently be cucked and counted to hell. So yeah, I think in PvP he's still not going to be usable, especially when Emma is in the meta right now. If Emma gets out of the meta somewhere, some way, shape or form, then he might be usable. So with this current buff, in conclusion, it's not going to be enough for PvP usage, but in PvE, stuff like towers or Infinite Miracle, the Inferno Tower, I think is going to be very good. Okay, Biondina. Her change is now her passive gains Aquatic Sentinel at the start of combat. It is undispellable and reduces damage taken from targets with attack below than hers. So the attack is minus 50% final damage. This is the cap damage reduction that you can have. So minus 50% is quite insane. But like I said, for you to be a bruiser in PvP, you kind of want to have either debuff immunity or self-sustain. She doesn't really have self-sustain. You still don't really want to run her in a PvP team that doesn't go first. If you get stunned, you won't do any damage, and if you get nuke, the damage reduction won't matter. You still can get 100 to 0 by a Shuan Pin team. You still can get 100 to 0 by a standard cleave team. A lot of teams can still nuke her from 100 to 0 pretty easily. So yeah, this damage reduction is not going to be enough for her to run in a tank team, but in a speed cleave, you might be able to use her. Also, I forgot to mention her S3. The single target damage is now from 65% to 75%, so it's a slight increase. But do bear in mind that she ignores defense, so it's just a 10% increase. It's still quite big. So I think she is just going to be, if Hollow Battle ever comes back, she's going to be usable, very good in that team, in Hollow Battle. But in Knockout, you probably still won't use her. In Point War, you can choose and pick your opponent, so you can use her there, but you won't be using her in your defense. You won't be using her in your main lineup. It's just mainly for counter picking, and that's about it. For PvE, her change is nothing much. She is still only going to be used in Dark Starlord Team 1, and that's about it, because ignoring defense in PvE is not that big of a deal. You can ignore defense all you want, but if your multiplier is low, like Biondina, you're still not going to do more damage than a nuker with like 400% multiplier that can do that damage on a defense broken unit. Because defense ignoring unit, they cannot really gain advantage by attacking defense broken unit, right? They are already ignoring 100% of the enemy defense. Defense break is not going to do anything for them. So yeah, defense ignoring is mainly for PvP, and because she doesn't really have any sort of sustain or debuff immunity, she's not going to be good for PvP. Okay, next unit is Lucas. His ability 3 got changed. The multiplier went from 100 to 180%. Okay, that's a pretty sizable increase. And then also he reduces the target's AP by 10%, and then upon successfully dispelling, he reduces the target's AP even further by 10%. So in total, that is, how much is that? He can reduce the target by 60% if you can remove 3 buffs from the enemy, which is quite a lot. Lucas' main problem is his strip chance is extremely low. 50% is terrible if you want to rely on him as your sole buff stripper. If you're running Lucas, you need to run Tricky in the same team. Tricky or Nusi, anything that can buff strip, you want to run with Lucas, because him being the buff stripper alone is not enough. 50% is too low of a chance. The enemy is going to have light above set plus adamantine set, and you need to remove the light above set for you to reduce the AP, right? So yeah, 50% is very low. Also, I forgot to mention his Resonance 6 got changed, which is now all AP reduction effects are now changed to AP absorption. So whenever he casts his S3, he almost instantly, he should be able to get like an instant turn. So he goes into S3 and then S2. So that's a stun. If you stun the enemy, that's also going to give him AP by 15% for each target stunned. Yeah, he's gonna be cycling like crazy, but again, AP controlling, like I said multiple times in a row, Mavis is a big problem. If you AP control, you just want to kill yourself. So in PvP, he doesn't work. He doesn't work in PvP as a soul buff stripper. So what it does, this change, all it does is it makes him better in areas that he's already good in, not opening up more aspects for him to be good in other areas. Okay, next unit is Cecilia. I missed out on the change on the S2, but some of you have pointed out that the change on the S2 is now she no longer increased the cooldown for each ally that she revives, whereas previously each ally revive she increases the cooldown by 1 turn. So yeah, the only change on her base kit that most people will be affected by is the S1, which is also still nothing too crazy. She doesn't really do as damage, so her healing is still going to be low. But I think moving forward, because of this change on her S2, you kind of want to run your Cecilia extremely fast now. Not you can still run her on Snow Dowager set, but you want that Snow Dowager set to be fast and not just tanky, because previously when she revives, the cooldown on her S2 is too long that you kind of just give in that you will never cast it back again. So that's why you build her, that's why everyone builds their Cecilia slow with like a bunch of HP, right? But with this current change, now being a 6 turns, you kind of want your Cecilia to be extremely fast on Windwalker set and not on Ocean Wave set, because this skill cannot be affected by anything, not abilities, not relic sets. So use her on Wind set so that she can cycle her turns and then potentially reduce this cooldown all the way down to 0, and then she could revive your entire team once again. I think that's the biggest change, going from a tank Cecilia to a really fast Cecilia with some tanky stats, so that she can utilize her S2 more often this time around. For R2 Cecilia, her change is all ability cooldowns for the revive target will be cleared. This is pretty insane. I think the best team would be to run her in a cleave team, so something like this. If you have this units, then this is going to be pretty massive. You can run this as one of your knockouts team, so something like this. Unas is not really a priority, but Shuanpin is kind of a priority because you want to one-shot the enemy with Raven. So if you're going up against a tank team, then you get the first turn, Unas gets his first turn, AP push, Shuanpin does the AoE, grants the attack buff, and then your Raven will just one-shot the entire team. If you don't one-shot, then you drag out the battle, and then when Cecilia dies, she revives everyone, and then you can do the nuke again. So the tank team is going to endure 2 times of your nuke. And if you're going up against other speed cleave teams, the enemy speed cleave team is going to go first, one-shot your entire team, revive Cecilia revives everyone, and then Unas gets his turn, AP push, Shuanpin gets her turn, use the S3, and then Raven gets her turn, and then just one-shots the cleave team. Because this team cannot be countered by ability cooldowns like Nusi or Ethan with the Panic Ggez debuff. If he kills one of your units, or if one of your units casts the S3 or S2, then the Panic Ggez will increase the cooldown of your team by 1, right? but because Cecilia with her R2 now resets your cooldown, you don't really care about cooldown all that much anymore. And then her R6 is just once again solidifying this team even further. You don't really need to run Unas anymore. You don't even need to run Pin if you don't have her, because now she gives every one of your AP 100% boost and also grant them attack up, so you can just counter cleave without even running a attack buff. Cecilia changes mainly benefits the players that have R2 resonance and R6 resonance, but the base kit for like R0 Cecilia is still bare minimum. She's still very good in PvP even at R0, because she is one of the best counter cleave unit that you can get because of her AoE team revive. But her title has been taken by Mavis, so yeah, her R0 is still weaker than Mavis in my opinion. Okay, Yamato changes. Not gonna lie, I think this change could be a new meta incoming. I'm not even joking. So his change is that his ability 1 now scales with attack and defense, so it's nothing too crazy. His scaling is still terrible. His S2 also terrible scaling. The damage per stack is 10%, so it's going to do 100% of his defense. So the scaling is still pretty garbage, right? But what's new and what I think is going to be a potential meta for Sonica is his Resonance 2. Thunder Surge, whenever granting a buff, the target's defense plus 10% up to 50% defense. This is insane. It doesn't say base defense, it says defense straight up. It's kind of like Liam, like I did that one video. The attack buff that he gives from this vigilant buff, attack plus 30%, is overall attack. It's not just base attack. Same thing with this Haven buff, it is overall defense, not base defense. So with R2 broski right here, Yamato, he's going to give your Renzi or your newly acquired unit Haley 50% overall defense. Now this is going to stack additively with your defense buff, so it's not going to be too crazy. It's still going to be crazy because it's not base defense, and that's why I think he could potentially be meta for Sonica Team 1. But I say potentially because Sonica Team 1 is kind of infested right now. You cannot really run 10 units in the same team, right? So right now the meta Team 1 Sonica looks like this. The Fatum sisters provide this Captain Lead, the defense buff, and the speed up. Liam provides the assist to assist Renzi, and then Mavis provides the crit damage and also the Graveless mechanic, so your units don't die, and then Jin Yuya provides the healing. With Haley, you can swap out Renzi with Haley because now she has 100% chance to land defense break, and she also has a higher multiplier, and along with the Molten Hot debuff, and she also has a Sear debuff, so she can provide a higher uptime on the Sear debuff because Mavis also has the Sear debuff, right? So I think this is what the Sonica Team 1 is going to look like. But with Yamato, you can remove Fatum sisters and put in Yamato like this. Boom. So your Haley can have a 50% defense while also having the defense buff from Yamato. This might be potentially the new meta, but I say potentially because he doesn't provide the speed up buff, whereas the Fatum sisters have the speed up buff and the captain ability. His captain ability does not work in Falsetto Fantasy. So again, even though the 50% defense is kind of intriguing, right? You're still missing a lot of crucial buffs like the speed up and also the speed lead. So yeah, I think Yamato, he might be close to meta, but probably not enough. Aside from those changes, I don't think he's going to be anything impactful unless you have him at R6 and with his divinate. So Yamato, anything below R6, I think is still going to be useless. He doesn't really change much with his kit. His R2 is situational at best because it's only good for like Sonica, and anything else is not really that crazy. Okay, Javid, some of you have pointed out as well, his S2 got nerfed actually. His Judgment Seal, he no longer provides the Judgment Seal, whereas previously he provides a Judgment Seal with a 50% chance, right? Now he just gains the AP up. So I didn't catch this one when I read through the patch notes. So yeah, I think this is a pretty sizable nerf. Now the Judgment Seal is going to be, the uptime is going to be a lot lower, even though he gains AP, but it's not like an instant turn. It's only 15% per target. But his S3 did get buff. He now gains stun if the HP is above 70%. And then he's also, R6 is now immune to stuns and sleep, and dispels himself from debuffs before he launches an attack. So let's go over his kit real quick. I think he is just about the same for PvE users. You can still use him in Infinity Tower. It's just that it sucks that his Judgment Seal is going to be a lot lower uptime, because now he only applies it with his S3, right? His S1 doesn't apply it. He only does AoE damage. So you kind of want him to cycle like crazy, so you can have the Judgment Seal up on the enemies at all times, so you can do a lot of damage. But because of the removal on his S2, he doesn't really have that uptime anymore. The stuns is helpful, but not really that much. You still want to run a stunner, because this one, the stun only affects units that is above 70% HP. In towers, the enemies is going to drop below 50%, and then you can no longer stun with him. So you still need a stunner with him. You cannot really run him as a soul stunner because he doesn't work. He has a condition to his stun, is what I mean. So yeah, this stun is a good addition. It's just not what he needed. His R6 is whatever. If you R6 him, then you're a simp, and I despise you. So yeah, that's about it. Okay, next unit is Elaine. The only change that she got was the Night Goddess. Now, instead of granting her stealth at the end of her turn, it now grants her stealth at the start of her turn, and her damage multipliers also got increased. The S3 went from 55% to 60%, and the S2 went from 40% to 48%. So her S3, or her Night Goddess buff, now gives her stealth at the start of her turn, or just gives her stealth, so you cannot remove it from her. Okay, so also the buff on stealth makes it so that you cannot get counted, which is kind of useful for Ana. If you are manualing your PvP in like Point War or something, then she could be a more viable unit to kill off Ana and not get counted. But in Knockout, she is still going to be bad, because the AI will randomly go for units that is type advantage, so units like Sally, even if the Ana is on the battlefield. So if she goes for Sally, then you are kind of screwed, because she's not going to kill Sally, and she keeps on going for Sally, and Ana is going to wreck your entire team, and Elaine is going to be the last one alive because she cannot be targeted, right? And if she's the last one alive, then she's just going to die. And the attack increase is a little bit useful for Forbiter, and I guess for Dark Starlord if you are using her in that. But aside from that, it's nothing too crazy. It's just a little bit of bump up damage, and she doesn't really do damage to begin with. So yeah. Alright, the second last unit is Ophelia. The changes to her is that her S2 is now, if she doesn't kill the enemy, she gains a shield which is 20% of her max HP. And then her R2 is after attacking the enemy with her S2, if the enemy has more than a certain buffs, she will reduce the cooldown on her S3 by 1 turn. So let's take a look. It's 3 or more debuffs. So yeah, this is quite massive. It's not gonna be usable for PvP because you can't really stack that much debuffs in PvP unless you're running the poison comps. So you might be able to run her in the poison comp with Hilda, but aside from that, I don't think this R2 is going to be usable. But this R2 change, however, is pretty insane for PvE, because now if you can actually use her for bossing contests. I think she's going to be very good because her cycle is insane. She is going to use the S3 because the S3 is on a 3 turn cooldown, right? When you get your turn, you will use the S2, reduce the cooldown of your S3 by 1 turn, and then when she gets her turn again, she will cast the S3 again. So yeah, the cycle is going to be S3, S2, S3, S2. She's going to spam her skills infinitely if you have the boss up at least 3 or more debuffs. So she could be good for Falsetto Fantasy for all of the bosses actually. Sonica, for what's it called? Forbiter, for the other guy, Dark Starlord, all of them. If you have her at R2, if you don't have her at R2, nothing has changed about her. I don't think the shield is not really gonna do anything for you for her base kit. But if you do have her R2, then you should give her a try. Give her a try in Falsetto Fantasy, and you'll probably get like a pretty good score with her. And lastly, my throat is kind of dry right now. I've been talking for way too long. Is Ashley. Her changes is only on her resonance. Her resonance 2, instead of 50% of her attack, it is now 100% of her attack. So she's gonna protect you, protect your team better this time around. And then her R6 is she gains 1 rainbow bridge after casting any ability, whereas previously it's only after casting the I think the S1 or something like that. Not much changes to Ashley really. It only makes her better in PvP with the shield, because you're building your Ashley with like hit, attack and speed, or attack and attack. You can have her attack at around 6,000 to 7,000 without attack buff. When you have attack buff, it's around times 1.6. That's around 8,000 to 9,000, right? You can even go to 10,000. So if you do have her at R6 or R2, the shield that she provides is going to be around 8 to 10,000, which is pretty good. It's not too crazy. Units like Clara is going to still give you a bigger shield, because in PvP, with all the inflated stats, 35% of the HP is then turned into 120% of shield strength. So again, her shield is not really that her main selling point. There's a lot of other units that can provide a better shield for you. Laura, Lian, Clara, like I said. So yeah, this change is not really that game breaking for her. The R6 is also not too crazy. It just gives her 1 stack when you cast her S3 and S2. You can put her on the Avatara set and also gain the Rainbow Bridge when you cast an Avatara, but it's not really that game breaking. So places that she's already good in, which is PvP, if you do run her in like a cleave team, she's still going to be good, and nothing's changed about her. She just gets slightly bump up in damage, and the shield also increased slightly. It doesn't really solidify her in places that she wasn't good in. And yeah, I think that's about it. Those are all of the changes and my opinion about it. Some of the units don't really need the change, like Ashley, she didn't really need the buff. But units like Javid, he kind of needed more. And the best change I think is still going to be JJ. It doesn't really, I don't think it's gonna make him broken. It's going to make him good in PvP. Maybe borderline broken because you can't really counter him with a cooldown up anymore. But we'll have to see when it comes to the live server, and hopefully Lilith does another balance patch in like the next couple of patches or something, because balance patch is very good for the game. It creates a new meta and it just keeps the game alive. So yeah, that's about it. Ciao.